Yo, what's good, everybody? And once again, it is your boy, Freddie Bungetty, and we're here with another episode of Bound for Impact. And this isn't just any typical episode of Bound for Impact. I'm going to do a bit more than just review last week's episode of TNA Impact. I'm also going to share my experiences from an event with a promotion that's in a partnership with TNA as well, and it may not be the one that you think. So, but before we get into any of that, I got to do my shameless plugs. Please, if you're enjoying this content, if you're enjoying my thoughts on TNA, the TNA NXT partnership, fantasy booking, any of that, please make sure that you like and subscribe. Get that notification bell ringing, and I want to thank all of those that have taken the time to check out the content. So first of all, I'm just going to talk about my experiences. Like I said, I was at a show last Thursday, so this is kind of why I'm a little late to reviewing this episode of TNA Impact. And I was I was at an event, Westside Gunn Day from Fourth Rope. It was in Buffalo, New York, my hometown. And first of all, I just kind of want to say Fourth Rope is doing big things here. If you ever get an opportunity to go to one of these Fourth Rope shows, please take the time to do it. So the show started out, Westside Gunn is from Buffalo as well. He's the owner of Fourth Rope, and started out as a charitable event. He was providing school supplies, free school supplies for kids in the local area, free school clothes for kids in the local area. There was free food, bun bees, trill burgers for all if you're not familiar with Fourth Rope, it's kind of a blend of wrestling and also like hip hop culture, art. There was some graffiti going on there. And listen, if you're a big fan of wrestling and hip hop like I am, it's a no-brainer. You got to go to one of these shows. So the card was stacked. There was a lot of our TNA favorites there. There were, of course, the Hardy Boys were there. Moose was there. Mara Sade was there. There's a few other TNA wrestlers there. There was also AEW wrestlers there. We had the Infantry in the building. We had Kevin Knight in the building. AJ Francis was there. And, I'm not sure if this is going to be televised or put on their YouTube channel or anything. So I don't want to spoil anything and talk about the results, but it was a fantastic event. You had, also your typical Fourth Rope guys, your Real One, aka formerly known as Enzo Amore, Josh Bishop, Zilla Fatu, Journey Fatu was there. There's a lot of high profile independent wrestlers. The ever so viral Nikki Blackheart was there. Alexis Lightfoot, Tiara James. It was a fantastic event in the ring, outside the ring, the community work and charitable work. So please listen. I'm not even discussing the hip hop acts that was there. So the main event ended up being Josh Bishop defending his title against Matt Riddle. It was supposed to be Mance Warner, but I think Mance Warner wasn't able to come. So all the advertisements was Mance Warner. So that was another TNA connection. But for some reason, he wasn't able to arrive. So while they were setting up the steel cage, listen to this. While you were if you a hip hop head, while they were setting up the steel cage, you get to see Bun B perform, Styles P came out and performed, and Joey Badass came out and performed. It's crazy. It's crazy. It was an absolutely stacked show. So if you do ever get an opportunity to attend a fourth rope event, do it. Do yourself a favor. It's a blast. It was a blast. There was a lot of other funny instances that happened there. When I arrived, I go to the concessions. Me, my wife, my brother, we grab a bite to eat. We all grab some pizza or whatever. I run into my man Brett, who works for Empire State Wrestling. Like I said, I watch a lot of indies. So I'm running to him. We have a nice conversation. We grab our food, and we grab our food. We go over to like this little seated bar area in the venue. We're eating our food, and lo and behold, I see TNA president Carlos Silva chilling over there in his little TNA trucker cap. So then I go up to, I don't like invading people's spaces or anything like that, right? But I recognize him, and I go up to him. I say, "Yo, TNA is doing big things." I'm wearing my System shirt, so he sees that I'm a TNA fan. He says, "Yo, I like your System shirt." And then my brother's like, "Yo, Carlos, y'all doing big things over at TNA." And he's just like, "Thank you, super nice." He was just kicking it. I think he thought he was going to be incognito, but after we spotted him, there's other people kind of going up and approaching him. So Carlos, I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean to spark nothing, but he was super nice, chatted with us for a minute, took photos. If you go on my Twitter account or X, you'll see that I got a picture with Carlos Silva. I'm looking crazy because it was raining outside the venue and we all got soaking wet, but he was a nice enough guy. He was like, "Man, you guys all got soaking wet." He still gave me a hug and took a photo with me. So Carlos Silva, thanks for being a good dude. It was kind of funny just seeing him just chilling up in the venue with, the folks. So, like I said, the wrestling was top notch. All of the hip hop performances were top notch. And I'll tell you what, whoever set up the audio there did a fantastic job because there was actual clarity in the vocals. It wasn't the biggest venue, but as someone who knows about show and event services, like, they did a great job there. So now I will get into a topic that I've been meaning to come on and address, but life happens, man. I'm trying to build up a consistency of when I can record this pod and all of that good stuff. So please bear with me if you're a fan, and thank you for your support. But my girl, Ash By Elegance, won the TNA Knockouts Championship at NXT Heatwave. And if you guys rewind the tape, rewind it, I said I have a sneaky suspicion that Ash is going to win this. And there we go. Ash was the one that won the championship. It was a really good match. There's people that aren't really familiar with what Ash's TNA work has been like, and they just kind of, a lot of WWE fans just associate people with who they were when they were presently in their organization, right? Or at their wrestling federation. And you would think that, like, people will recognize that people have the opportunity to grow. There's Drew McIntyre and, Eli Drake and all of these other people that have kind of come to TNA and found their footing, right? And I remember when Ash first signed with TNA, she gave credit to Naomi and said, Naomi told me to sign with TNA, or encouraged me to sign to TNA, because I'll get a little bit more creative control over my character and I can figure things out. Now, if you've been watching Ash for the last year and a half at TNA, she's been the most consistent character in the Knockouts division. She's always entertaining. Sometimes she gets a little out of hand with the bad comedy, but for the most part, she's been one of the more compelling characters in the Knockouts division. I'm a big fan of the Elegance brand, so the fact that they have all the titles was cool to me, you know what I mean? But, I also kind of wanted to talk about how much she's improved in the ring. The people that know her just as Dana Brooks, talk about how she is a bad performer and all of that good stuff. But if you watch some of her TNA matches, you see her match with Havoc, her match with Jordan Grace, and a lot of her tag team Knockouts division stuff has been really good. So here's what you got to understand. She's a beloved person within the TNA locker room. She's beloved amongst all of her peers. And sometimes you just have to reward your workers. And this is a fantastic reward. And you know what? I'm interested to see what can happen with her title reign. Because not to knock Masha or Jordan Grace prior to her, but their character work isn't the greatest, right? There wasn't much stories behind Jordan Grace's defense other than, hey, I'm looking for a challenger. Here comes Carmen Petrovic of NXT, or here's Ash, or, challenger of the week type stuff. So, hopefully they can build a really compelling story with this one. And, I know essentially we kind of see Indy Hartwell as the Knockouts champion, but let's see how this goes. I'm excited for Ash's title reign. So, those were the two things that I kind of wanted to address before I get into this episode of TNA Impact from August 28th, 2025. And I thought overall it was a pretty good weekly broadcast. I was a little exhausted from wrestling because I had watched some matches of NXT Heatwave. I had watched all of AEW Forbidden Door, and then I had went to Fourth Rope, and so I was like, yo, I'm a little wrestling fatigue, you know what I mean? So it took me a little bit to get around to this episode, and I think it was pretty good. It was pretty okay. It starts out with Mike Santana and Steve Maclin teaming up to take on Trick Williams and AJ Francis, and it was a pretty good match. I'm kind of exhausted of, hey, the champion has to wrestle the challenger in a tag team match. That's kind of the pattern of TNA and a lot of wrestling organizations as well. But like, how many tag team matches can we see? Trick Williams versus Mike Santana, or Trick Williams versus Joe Hendry, or whoever his challenger is. So essentially, Santana, I'm gonna just go fast forward right to the end. He kind of starts giving Trick Williams that work. He spikes him with a Death Valley driver, and AJ Francis breaks it up. Then Trick inadvertently hit AJ Francis, and Santana kind of evaded a trick shot and was able to roll up Trick Williams for the 1, 2, and the 3. After the match, Santana and Trick Williams kept going at it. And then we hit a backstage segment. It's Leon Slater. And he's talking about how he's a little conflicted about having a team up against the Hardys. Like he wants to kind of show his stuff, but at the same time, those are his mentors. So he doesn't really want to go head to head against them. So the next match was Eric Young versus Myron Reed. And, there's been kind of some allusions here that, alluding. Eric Young is talking about a cleanse is coming to TNA, right? So this has kind of been he's always kind of in these little factions. I'm a little concerned about Sinner and Saint. He kind of tossed them to the side last week or a couple weeks ago, and we haven't heard or seen them since. I think they were signed about a year ago. So this, TNA, most of their deals are about a year. So hopefully we get to see Travis Williams and Judas Icarus again. I feel like it was opportunity wasted. I've heard people say that they're not built for TV, and I would agree with that, but like, them boys can work in the ring, maybe you should have just kind of let them do what they're strong at, which is wrestle. The tag team division is kind of weak right now. We got the Nemesis, the Rascals, and the Hardys, and First Class, right? So, and the Great Hands. So they need to start building up the men's tag team division. Anyhow, Eric Young keeps talking about the cleanse is coming, and you can tell that part of it is kind of getting to Myron Reed. Anyways, they have their match, and this was actually a really good match. And, Myron Reed since he's been back to TNA, since he's been filling in for Trey Miguel, I've been highly impressed with him in the ring. We all knew that he could go, but like, it seemed like he's bulked up a little bit, and he's just kind of doing his thing. He's maintained his speed. It was a pretty good match. There's a few notable things that I'm gonna get into. There was like a fan in the crowd that was wearing a mask, and he was holding up a sign saying that the cleanse is coming, the cleanse is coming. So essentially the end result of this match is Zachary Wentz comes out after Eric Young had threatened to hit the referee, and so then the referee was distracted, and Eric Young hits Myron Reed with a low blow, hits him with a pile driver, and gets the victory. So after that, Danny Luna, there's a backstage segment with her. She's talking about why she had did what she did the previous week, which is the most interesting thing that has happened to Danny Luna in a very long time. She's had a heel turn. She's saying, listen, I'm not getting what I deserve, so now I'm just going to take it, essentially. So then there's like a little backstage thing that was clearly not filmed in the same arena with the Elegance brand and personal concierge. And essentially they just kind of say, hey, we're going to throw a big extravagant celebration for the live tapings in Minnesota. So I'm looking forward to that. I say it all the time. I can't get enough of the Elegance brand. So after that, we get into TNA Knockouts tag team match, which was the Inspiration versus Fatal Influence. And I'll tell you what, man, Fatal Influence can go. Fallon Henley and Jasmine Nix can go, and you know how I feel about JC Jane. I'll wax poetic about her. I love her in the ring. Essentially, Inspiration ends up hitting the idolizer on Jasmine Nix and getting the victory. You know, now that JC Jane has lost the TNA Knockout title, she'll probably focus on defending her NXT title, and I kind of have a suspicion that Fatal Influence has done all that they can do in TNA, you know what I mean? So maybe, hopefully, we get not a break from the crossover, because I know Zaya Brookside is wrestling at NXT, but you know, maybe we can kind of revitalize it and reshuffle the deck and maybe have storylines that aren't title related in this crossover. That would be pretty interesting, you know. Maybe we could have intermingling of the rosters. Like, I thought that when Wendy Chu and Rosemary were teaming up, that was pretty interesting. They should have kind of continued with that, but we'll see. You know how I feel about this partnership. This is something, the one thing that I kind of didn't like about this episode is it's kind of corny. Trick Williams is getting on the phone and crying to his lawyer, and it's like, this feels like a personality shift for no reason for Trick Williams. He's coming across as a complainer and a whiner, which this whole time he's been this braggadocious egomaniac. Hey, I'm whooping everyone in their hometowns. Nobody in TNA can beat me. But now he can't defend his title for 50 days, and I'm going to cry to my lawyer every time I feel threatened. This ain't working for me. This is kind of how you can tell his reign is coming to an end soon. You know, if TNA do the right thing. So after that, Ryan Nemeth comes out. He obviously says his big brother returns from suspension next week on the Live Impact in Minnesota. So then Alicia Edwards and Eddie Edwards come out there. And I like Alicia's approach here. She comes out, she says, do you want to know something? And then she says, hey, I know that the system has done a lot of wrong, but we're trying to redeem ourselves from that. So first thing we're going to do is shut you up. And then Ryan Nemeth is like, usually I wouldn't hit a woman, yada, yada, yada. And Alicia says, not me, idiot. I'm talking about Eddie. So then an impromptu match between Ryan Nemeth and Eddie Edwards goes off. And it was pretty decent for a Ryan Nemeth match. Essentially, Eddie Edwards just hits him with a Tiger Bomb in the Boston Knee Party, and he gets a win. So, after that, there's a backstage segment once again, and it's Santino had announced that that Indy Hartwell and Jody Threat should go one-on-one to see who is the contender for the Knockouts title, but they literally said last week that Jody Threat won the gauntlet and that she's the number one contender. They retconned it literally a day later, a week later, in broadcasting schedule. But it's like, man, y'all literally said a few times that Jody Threat is the number one contender. So, anyways, what happens is Indy Hartwell, Santino says Indy Hartwell versus Jody Threat to see who's the number one contender. And then Indy Hartwell suggests that they add Danny Luna and make it a triple threat match. So that's a match that I'm excited to see. You know, Jody Threat is good in ring. She's a good worker, right? There isn't, you don't see like superstar potential in her. I don't, maybe she could get there someday. I don't see it, but she's a fantastic worker, and you need your divisions stacked with good workers. So Jody Threat can go in ring. Danny Luna's heel turn is one of the more interesting things going on, and Indy Hartwell's pursuit for the knockout titles. Let's see how they do this. The past couple times people were over for a championship, they ain't pulled the trigger at the right time. Joe Hendry took a little bit longer than it should have, and now he's working WWE house shows and is on his way out. And Mike Santana, we'll see. We'll see if they pull the trigger at Bound for Glory, but I'm pretty sure they will, but I still think they got that one wrong. That should have been Slammiversary. Also, there's more backstage stuff. It's Eric Young speaking in code or in cleanse or in riddles or whatever. Joe Hendry is laying out backstage. There's like a distro set up, and he's got some cables kind of laid over his body or wrapped around his neck. Okay, like Eric Young knocked out Joe Hendry. Is Joe Hendry gonna give the rub to whatever this Eric Young cleanse faction is before he leaves? Looks probably likely, right? TNA history is you just kind of know that a guy is leaving, so you job him out to everyone. So after that, a match I was looking forward to, mainly because we haven't been seeing Tasha Steelz in the ring. She's one of the best knockouts wrestlers that TNA has, but she's been caught up doing a lot of the Order 4, being the mastermind behind that group, and it's a big time faction in TNA. And so ends up being Tasha Steelz taking Mara Sade. And let me just say this. I seen Mara Sade at the 4th Rope event. There is beauty that seems unreal when you see it in real life. And man, when she came out, everyone just kind of stopped. And there was a lot of maybe not non-wrestling fans, maybe more hip-hop fans, but when she came out, everyone stopped what they were doing. Everyone did. I heard the teenage boys like, yo, did you see what she did with that lollipop? I was like, wow. But this was a good match. This was probably my favorite part of the show. They, Order 4 in typical fashion kind of were intervening in this match, but they kind of let them go. Mara Sade was fighting back. She fought back on Hotch. Then she ends up diving outside of the ring. I think she hit John Skyler with a dive outside the ring. And then when she came back into the ring, Tasha Steelz hit her with a cutter. And that was it. 1, 2, 3. Tasha Steelz held on to the rope a little bit too. But what was very interesting was the thing that happened after the match. Agent Zero came in, and man, he just kind of he knocked Mara Sade's block off with a clothesline. It was wild. It was good for her for taking that bump, and good for TNA for actually letting it happen. Not that I condone that, but this is wrestling entertainment. And there was so after that, Order 4 was, considering jumping her, and then the Hardys came out. So Mara Sade seems like she's going to be the next to get the Hardy rub, just kind of like how Leon Slater is. And it's interesting because she has a certain star quality and makes me think, is there a future in which Mara Sade goes for the TNA Knockouts Championship? Stay tuned, man. We'll figure it out. So after the Hardys kind of came out comes Leon Slater and Cedric Entertainer, and Cedric Alexander. Whoa, that's how you know your boy is tired. I said Cedric the Entertainer. Cedric Alexander, and this was a fantastic match. You can see that it starts out, you can see that Leon Slater is a bit conflicted. He wasn't going full force with some of his moves, and Cedric Alexander was like, yo, I'm here to get it popping. Let me see what I could do against the Hardys, right? Matt Hardy hit Leon Slater with an early twist of fate, and it was just a really good match, man. And it kind of makes me wonder about Cedric Alexander. I don't think he's signed to TNA. I think he's probably paid for appearances right now. That's why he's never won a match, other than he beat up a bunch of security guards, I think. So, I'm quite interested to see what his contract status is and what his future is, because he's been really good. I think even his little backstage moments with Leon Slater have been really good. In the ring, he's top notch. Essentially, it just kind of ends up with Matt Hardy hitting a twist of fate on Cedric Alexander, and then the swanton for Jeff to get the one, or actually Matt pinned him. But the Hardys got to get their moves off in every match. I seen them at Fourth Rope. They were in a match against the Good Brothers in the Infantry, and it was a really good match. But the Hardys just had to get their moves on. They're gonna always hit you with their tag team tandem moves. So after this is one thing that I don't know why they closed the show with this. I would have probably tossed this in the middle in post-production and editing, because this wasn't a live show. So Santino comes out, or Trick Williams comes out with his lawyer. He's talking about he doesn't have to defend the title for 50 days. Yada, yada, yada. Crybaby Trick. Which is weird, because he's been arrogant ego Trick for the most part of this show. Or since he's been at TNA. Santino comes out. Santino said he did the calculation in his head. He said, 50 days, that means you'll be ready to defend it at Bound for Glory. Ha. Mike Santana, of course. So then Santino's interrupted by Trick's lawyer. Trick's lawyer can take a bump, I guess, because Santino pulls out the Cobra and hits Trick's lawyer, and that's it. So that was the episode of TNA Impact. It was a really good episode. Think I experienced a little bit of wrestling fatigue. Next week I'll be a little bit more on point. But once again, please, if you enjoyed this content, if you enjoyed this show, holla at your boy Brady Bungetti on all platforms, and please make sure you do like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell and let me know what you think. You know what I mean? So I hope you enjoyed the show. Once again, holla at me. Peace.